This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on The South Today, it's a major health issue in New Zealand, but many people don't know they're at risk. Students share their experiences eating on a budget of just $2.85 per day. And a large crowd is expected for the 60th year of a well-loved festival this weekend. Good evening, I'm Holly Buchanan. Each year, around 2,500 New Zealanders die from blood clots in the brain, otherwise known as stroke. It's one of the country's major health issues, and it's called the silent killer, as many people don't know they're at risk. But a national initiative is aiming to address that.
Handling the mounting pressure. Dunedin Mayor Dave Cull was among civic staff taking up the offer of a free blood test at work this morning. With the electoral race heating up, one could expect his blood pressure to be higher than normal. But he says that's not the case.
It's all right, yep. The more I took it, the better it got.
Cull says his doctor checks his blood pressure regularly, and he's encouraging others to follow suit. Stroke Foundation Community Advisor Judith Hislop says hypertension or high blood pressure is a key marker of stroke.
The higher the blood pressure, the more strain it's putting on the arteries. So it allows a bit of the plaque or perhaps a blood clot to break off your artery, and the two places it's more likely to get stuck is your brain or your heart. So basically a stroke is a brain attack.
Free blood pressure tests like this are going to be available throughout the country next month, with volunteer agencies helping out. St John Ambulance first responder Annette Tiffin says people's readings vary, and it's important for them to know their own average.
Well, it depends on the individual. We've got a little pamphlet here which gives an indication of what a high blood pressure could be, which could be anything greater than 140 over 90. But that might be the norm for someone, and it could be exceptionally high for someone else. And if exceptionally high, then what we would say to the person, well, if you're concerned about it, you would need to go and see your GP.
The Stroke Foundation recommends people eat more fibrous fruit and vegetables, cut down on salt and quit smoking. The organisation, along with St John and Rotary, are hosting free blood pressure tests at Pack and Save and New World supermarkets on Saturday, October the 1st. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Protesters gathered at the University of Otago to interrupt a visit by the Deputy Prime Minister this morning. About 70 people gathered mid-morning for the protest outside a lecture theatre. They were bringing attention to tertiary underfunding and the impact that's having on divisions like humanities. The Tertiary Education Union says Bill English is a humanities graduate, so his visit to the campus was an opportune time
Ultimately,
to
the government holds
protest.
the purse strings and they fund universities, and our view is that universities are chronically underfunded, and in particular there has been a focus from the government on the STEM subjects, which are hugely important to New Zealand, but also so is humanities.
English, who's also Finance Minister, was visiting the campus to address commerce students and stopped briefly to talk with protesters. All around the country this week, people have been choosing to eat only $2.85 worth of food a day. It's for a Tear Fund initiative highlighting the problem of human trafficking in poverty-stricken areas of the world. And some University of Otago students are hoping to raise money to make a difference.
Food. To most Kiwis, it's not only fuel, but it's a way to celebrate and come together. But with its rising cost, food can be a luxury that many people overseas and domestically can't afford. That's prompting some Dunedin students to go without.
Probably have half a cup of porridge in the morning, a few pieces of toast. We have meals, dinner meals, kind of they're a bit of a variation between them.
Live Below the Line is a Tear Fund challenge to raise awareness for the fight against the exploitation of people living below the international poverty line. Participants survive on just $2.85 worth of food each day for 5 days. They're sponsored, and the money goes to Tear Fund to try bring an end to human trafficking. Grace Boston says it's helping her see how the other half lives.
for me this has been a humbling experience, just beginning to try and empathise and relate to people in New Zealand and around the world as to how they're having to make sacrifices and choices about what they are able to eat or not eat.
Nearly $100,000 has been raised by people doing the challenge so far this year. The Otago University team of 10 has met its challenge of $3,000 and its members are keen to keep the momentum going. They say the experience is leading to peer discussions about important issues.
It's also very rewarding, and being able to have those conversations with people about human trafficking and about poverty and about inequality. It's an amazing opportunity to begin to broach those topics with people.
Campbell says the challenge has opened his eyes to how much he spends on extra luxuries, and it'll change the way he lives going forward.
In my flat, we've got a few boys, so we definitely like to have a decent amount of meat. But chucking in some vegetarian meals and like being really creative with them and making them affordable is definitely something we're going to do.
The challenge officially ends today, but donations are still being accepted for another week. Ruby Spink, The South Today.
Public Health South is reporting a rise in the number of people with bacterial gastroenteritis across the district. The organisation's urging residents to practice good hand hygiene accordingly, as it's the best way to minimise getting and spreading the illness. It says the main bacteria responsible are Campylobacter and a type of Salmonella associated with farm animals. While numbers remain low at less than 5 cases, increases tend to happen at this time of year around calving and lambing season. A major risk factor for becoming infected with gastroenteritis is close contact with animals, particularly farm animals. An iconic New Zealand festival marking the changing of the seasons is taking place in Alexandra this weekend. Thousands of people are expected to flood the central Otago town for the 60th annual Blossom Festival, and organisers are promising a whole lot of fun to mark the milestone.
Pioneer Park in Alexandra is host to the annual Blossom Festival being held this weekend. There will be rides, craft markets, food stalls, music and entertainment for the young and the young at heart. Organiser Martin McPherson is confident there'll be a good turnout.
I'm expecting a crowd of around 10,000. If we get a day like this and the weather gods are being very kind, we could get double that. I'm starting to think I may need a bigger park.
A street parade made up of floats covered with folded tissue blossoms is the mainstay of the festival. Activity then moves into the park, where punters can browse 155 arts and crafts stalls while sampling food and drink from a further 60 operators. McPherson says all the staple attractions will be on offer, including a Ferris wheel, water walkers and a bungee tramp. But this year is a special one.
Of course, this year we celebrate the 60th anniversary, our Diamond Jubilee, the longest running community event of its kind in the country.
The festival began in 1957 as a fundraiser for a community swimming pool. It's since then poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into the town. McPherson says while the financial returns are not what they once were, capturing the imagination of locals and visitors is still worth it.
I stand out there on Centennial Avenue when the parade starts and I endeavour to thank everybody as they go past. And I must admit, even though this is my 7th consecutive one and I've done about 10 earlier in my career here, I still get really emotional because it is something very special to be involved with.
He says the event heralds the beginning of spring and is a celebration of place and community. It's the longest running festival in the country and there's still plenty of enthusiasm for it to continue into the future. Jack Conroy, The South Today.
Still to come on The South Today, we meet those standing for mayor in central Otago.
Hi, my name is Ronald Fong. I believe that together we can build a brighter future for Dunedin. I'm presenting 2 major infrastructure proposals that won't cost the ratepayer a single cent. The first is a flood protection scheme for South Dunedin based on successfully used displacement tent systems overseas. The second is a major new redevelopment of our Harborside area to create a world-class community space. Vote Ronald Fong and let's build a brighter future together. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Doug Hall. I stood for council in the 2013 election and got elected. The achievements I've been part of in the last 3 years have been of a great benefit to Dunedin City. Reducing debt, improving contracts and better liaison with the general public. to further reduce debt and better management of all contracts. Vote Doug Hall, first choice for council.
Hello, I'm Isla McLeod and I'm standing for the Dunedin City Council. I'm recently returned from Christchurch where I spent 2 terms on a community board as Deputy Chair or Chair. I was on the Water Management Zone Committee and I was on the board or a member of several environmental groups. And now I'd like to use all of that knowledge and experience for the good of Dunedin. And if it's good for Dunedin, it's good for you.
Hello, my name's Malcolm Dixon. I'm standing for the Dunedin City Council. I've been in retail for 40 years in Dunedin and I would like to see some changes in the city. I'm passionate about growing business opportunities in Dunedin. Transport and parking issues are important to me, and flooding and management of city assets, especially in South Dunedin area, are a major issue. So remember to vote for Malcolm Dixon at Dunedin City Council.
If you're eligible to vote in the local body elections, you should have received your voting papers by now. Elections are being held for Mayor, the Dunedin City Council and its community boards, and the Otago Regional Council. Information about candidates and the different types of voting systems is included with your voting papers, or visit dunedin.govt.nz/elections. All voting papers will list candidates randomly so that every voting paper is different. Remember, you have the right to vote. Don't be left out. Vote early.
Welcome back. As part of our Southern focus on the local body elections, tonight we meet the candidates standing for Mayor of Central Otago. The South today was at a candidates forum in Alexandra, organised by the Otago Chamber of Commerce and the Otago Daily Times.
I don't need any introduction to this community. I've been working passionately for 23 years promoting Alex, Central Otago as a great place to live, work and play. I think you all know me. You know I get the job done. And it's a miracle I'm still standing because, as we all know, in 2 days' time we celebrate Blossom Festival, and I can guarantee you I've got the weather organised for it as well. Right, on to the issues. Well, it is growth, and it's how we manage that, but it's more than that. It's how we look forward the next 3 or in the next 30 years. We need to have the infrastructure in place to support the growth. We're getting more and more people interested in living here, and as I've previously stated,
Myself, brief personal background, I'm a lawyer. My office is just straight over there. I work in the court, which is where I've got to be at 9:15 because I'm sitting as dispute tribunal referee. They can't start without me, so I've got to be there on time. So that's 2 of my 3 jobs. I'm also one of your Central Lakes trustees, so that's an important role too in this community. I also spent 5 years on the Vincent Community Board, so I know about how local government works. I know how important it is to do all the research, the background. I know how important it is to ask the questions and then question the answers that the staff give you. I've owned 2 businesses in this town. One of them was a wine shop. That lasted exactly 1 year that it had left on the lease. And when we walked away from it, my wife and I were the only people that had left owing money to. That was a bit of a blow, but it taught us very much how hard it is to run a business in any town, but in a small town in particular. Second business, as I say, my own law practice, been going 6 years, still going strong, although it may be shutting down in a couple of weeks, because if I'm elected, I'll be closing almost all of my law practice, just keeping a tiny fraction of it. I'll be walking away from the Central Lakes Trust election process, and I will be handing in my warrant from the Governor-General as a dispute tribunal referee. I've lived in Central Otago for 21 years. I came to Cromwell, then Alexandra and Clyde, so I've lived throughout the region. I lived in Queenstown before that, and Balclutha and Dunedin before that. Never lived outside of Otago. When I first came here, I was a solo dad with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. I was on the DPB. I stayed on the DPB as long as it took me to get back onto work, but I was still a solo dad for 6 years after that, so I know what hard times are like. I know how hard it can be to get ahead. I'm going to be a full-time mayor. As I've said, I'm going to be giving up all but about 5% of my current workload to devote all my energies to this region. So that's enough about me. What do I intend to do in the role? First question, what are the key issues facing the district? Well, the number one thing is growth. And it's actually growth in a way that very few other small towns or regions, or any of the regions, have in New Zealand. It's positive growth as opposed to negative growth. We're not having to plan for decay, we're having to plan for growth. Statistics New Zealand 2 years ago predicted in the next 30 years a 16.8% growth in Central Otago. That's not counting Queenstown, they're looking at 70.2% in Queenstown Lakes, but we're still doing very well on 16.8. That growth's got to be sustainable. We are right now the envy of virtually every small region in New Zealand. We've got to have leadership though in that growth to care enough to know that nobody's left behind. We had a business group meeting, a women in business group meeting at a forum at Monteith, where other candidates found out that there's some kids getting fed their lunches by the schools at the moment in Central Otago. That came as a shock. It doesn't come as a shock to me, because I'm already in with some of the areas that are struggling already. In Cromwell, you can see with the price of housing and the increases, particularly rent increases for the elderly, just how hard that is making people have to struggle day to day. So yes, let's keep the growth happening. Let's make sure it's sustainable. All of that is great and by and large works for everybody. But you've got to have somebody at the top who's also keeping an eye on the people at the bottom. Because if you don't, those people, they get left behind and it's just hard. So I say you can't train attitude and you can't train empathy either. How would I push for jobs? Well, I actually look at this group, the Chamber of Commerce, as being fundamental to that. I already attend the Alexandra Business Group breakfasts and the Cromwell Business Group breakfasts when work allows me. As a full-time mayor, I should be able to do it virtually all the time. I've attended the Manitoto Business Group breakfast when their bank shut down and want to get further involved in that group. Tevette Valley have a business group breakfast that I want to get involved with as well. All of these all of the towns in our region have got business groups running. They're all doing great things. I see the Chamber as being the umbrella group that can make sure that everybody knows what the other groups are doing and what they're saying. And as Mayor, I want to be involved with the advisory group of the Chamber, if they'll let me, so that I sit in on those meetings as well as all the other groups and bring the businesses together. Because when you talk about work and development, it's the small businesses that do it. That's the first 2 minutes?
Your first 2 minutes was actually, you can take it as a fraction longer.
Oh, wow! Doesn't time go fast when you're having fun?
The first one was so silent, I think it was only Tony and I that heard it.
Right, I'll fly along. The next question is, are you concerned about the amounts of council spending and how will you keep rates down? It's by asking the question why and not accepting that's the way we've always done it. It'll be why again. And finally, how will I relate with other councils? As I say, I've lived right throughout Otago. I know a lot of people throughout the region. I think I'll get on okay with the council to the south of us. I know 3 or 4 personally of the councillors that are already, well, they're not already elected because they've got elections for council over in Queenstown, but I've got a good relationship with several of the incumbent councillors. And it's all about communication and relationships. I get on well with most people. Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much for turning up. This is our 7th one of these, so we can sort of practice that, but some of the rules around this are different, but I'm wasting my time. I suppose I better do my background. I'm well educated, Canterbury University, Kellogg Rural Scholar from Lincoln University as well. I've run small businesses all my life. I build stuff, that's what I do. I've got an extensive sports governance background, chair of Sport Otago for 7 years, currently on the board of Bowls New Zealand, and Sport New Zealand has invested heavily in my governance capability. Some of you won't know, I'm a patron of the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and I'm also a judge of the New Zealander of the Year. Okay, some people have got faith in what I can do, and I've also been your mayor for the last 6 years. And I've also got my wife Bernie, who is heavily involved in education and social services and works closely with me all the time on my job, and that's a huge advantage. And the other thing which I can bring to this job is I've had 6 years as your mayor. I have the confidence of your senior councillors. The majority of those people are elected already. I work extremely closely with our new CEO, and I dispute what Martin said, that the CEO has her plans, she has our plans and my plans, and we work together on running our council. So the day after the election, in fact the morning of the election or the afternoon, we're ready to go, and that's what I bring. All right. Let's answer some of the questions. Key issues facing Central Otago currently, for the first time, and I never thought I'd have to say this. Oh no, probably not. When I first arrived here in 1983, I thought affordability was a problem. I think once again affordability of living here is a problem. When I arrived back in 83, buying a house was almost equivalent to buying a house in Auckland. All right? And once again we're facing that as well. Another issue is, we talk about growth, 16.8%, I can live with that, but what we've got to have to back that up is the infrastructure that will make us, turn us into a modern world. We've currently got Cromwell up there with a wastewater system that is not capable of satisfying the needs of a modern world. We're tipping stuff into the Clutha River that shouldn't, so we've got plans to upgrade almost all the infrastructure in Central Otago, and that's some of the projects that I want to start in the next 3 years. So I think that's important. And we can do that with rates increases of about 3.5%. It sounds expensive, but look, we've been given a legacy of stuff that hasn't been done, and I'm going to make sure it's done. All right? Housing, we need a bigger variety of housing, and we're talking about that. I don't believe in sprawl. I believe in making our towns more. I like the village concept rather than people just spreading out and ruining out agricultural land. Jobs and economic development. I think currently it's looking after itself, but that's not always the way. But our council, you know, we're good advocates. We're working in that irrigation area. We're working with seasonal solutions. We're working with seasonal housing. So, you know, there's some work the council can do there, but currently things are going all right, and the chamber's helping us out, so that's good. My goal is to make our council the best council in New Zealand, and being able to prove to you that it is. All right? And as far as council spending goes, you know, I can't see how I can keep our rates increases below 3.5% to 4% if we've got to do this infrastructure work. I could stop spending on economic development and tourism, and it would make no difference. It's about 0.5% or 1% if I took that expenditure away, and I think we've got to keep that going. And collaboration, 17A reviews, you probably don't know what they are, but I do, and they will make sure we collaborate with our neighbours. Thank you.
After the break on The South Today, we'll check out the weather for the lower half of the South Island.
Silberhorn's Collagen Plus naturally supports your collagen levels, giving you younger, firmer looking skin, healthier, shinier hair and stronger nails. Be quick, buy one now and get a second pack half price. Call 0800 502 402.
Pregnant? Need to talk? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Pregnancy counselling services are here to help. It's free, it's confidential. Call us now on 0800 773 462.
We need your help to rebuild our animal centre urgently. Please give a little today.
When it's time to say goodbye to your pet, Heaven Sent Pet Cremations are here to help you through this difficult experience. Call Heaven Sent Pet Cremations today for their care and guidance. Phone 489-2274.
Hi, I'm Dave Cole, Mayor of Dunedin, and together we're building a great city, not just for now, but for the future. And I'm committed to creating a positive legacy of sensible investments, sustainable businesses, an emphasis on infrastructure and environment, healthier homes, and your community well-being. A future our kids can be really proud to inherit. If you want the same positive future, please mark 1 for Dave Cole for Mayor and return your voting form. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Bruce Fairhurst. The City Council is a giant decision-making machine, and every year they make thousands of decisions that affect ratepayers, some in a small way, some in a large way. It's really important that those decisions are fair, made in a democratic way, and made with accurate and reliable information. I've lived my entire life in Dunedin, and I love it here. I've been working in the construction industry all of that time. I've seen massive changes in the consent process, making it difficult to build or improve your property. I see opportunities to make this process much more user-friendly. Vote Bruce Fairhurst with a 1. I'm looking forward to joining a talented team on the council this term and making Dunedin the best city it can possibly be.
Hi, I'm Dave Yardley and I'm standing for the Otago Regional Council. Two of Otago's greatest resources are our outstanding natural landscape and our capability for agriculture. Getting the balance right between preservation of that landscape and intensification of farming is a real challenge. To meet that challenge, we need a firm understanding of both our environment and our land-based businesses. I have that understanding to ensure that our landscape and farming can coexist in harmony for generations to come. A vote for Dave Yardley is a vote for reason, balance and integrity.
If you're eligible to vote in the local body elections, you should have received your voting papers by now. Elections are being held for Mayor, the Dunedin City Council and its community boards, and the Otago Regional Council. Information about candidates and the different types of voting systems is included with your voting papers, or visit dunedin.govt.nz/elections. All voting papers will list candidates randomly so that every voting paper is different. Remember, you have the right to vote. Don't be left out. Vote early.
And now recapping tonight's top stories on The South Today. Civic leaders and staff are promoting the importance of having regular blood pressure checks to prevent brain clots and stroke. University of Otago students are living below the poverty line for a week to raise money so human trafficking can be addressed. And Alexandra is gearing up for its 60th annual Blossom Festival, expected to attract thousands to the town this weekend. And now look at what's happening in tomorrow's weather.
The South Today weather update proudly brought to you in association with Silverhorns Emu Oil.
Starting with today's southern view taken of Oppo Park. Looking at the situation, there's not much change to come over the weekend. Weather systems around the country are static at the moment, with only minor changes day to day. To the southern outlook, Catlins light easterlies, some cloud and 11 degrees. Lumsden and Gore light winds fine and 13. And the central outlook, light winds fine and 13 degrees across the board. To the northern outlook, Timaru and Oamaru light easterlies at 11. And a fine day with light winds for Twizel and Omarama. Here in Dunedin, it'll be a cloudy night tonight with an overnight low of 5. Tomorrow, more cloud with light nor'easters with a few bright periods in the afternoon and a high of 11. And on Sunday, similar weather with sunny periods during the day and light nor'easters. And that's all we've got time for tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.